All right, looks like we got a few people out there already. If you don't know me, I am Dave Nelson, and you are watching Between Two Stoves, Sacramento's greatest fake food-based television program, okay? We are streaming today in the Industry Cooking Community Group on Facebook. And I should say, if you are interested, you can go on over and subscribe to the Industry Cooking channel on YouTube at some point. We got tons and tons of archived educational cooking videos, along with lots and lots of interviews with local food luminaries. But right now, we're starting a live roundtable discussion here on the show. So this is not a great time to describe. We'll talk about that later. Instead, subscribe to this wonderful, wonderful show so you can take part in this exciting and relevant, pardon me, so you can take part in this exciting and relevant in these uncertain times discussion with Sactown slow food celebrities. And we have a great lineup today. We have the current chairman of Slow Food Sacramento, Brenda Ruiz. She's going to be joining us. We also have urban farmer Chanowk Yisrael from the Israeli Family Farm. You've probably heard of him. He gets out there quite a lot. We also have the wonderful Roehr from Sacramento's Magpie Cafe. We're going to be talking with a longtime friend of the show, Veldman-Miller from VMillerMeats. You've seen him on here a few times. In fact, he was on the initial show cruise when we first took the show out for a roll. I still thank you for that, Eric. That is awesome. And we are also talking with the mighty Amy Grabish from the Pip Wine Shop in Dixon, California. And she's also running Grabish Farms in Dixon, which is just a beautiful little farm over there across the river, okay? These incomparable food folk will be talking about the slow food movement in action, past, present, and future. There's lots to talk about. So before we get rolling, I just want to remind everyone out there that you too can take part in this discussion as well by submitting your questions in the comments below this video feed. I'm hoping you guys are going to get involved with this. I already see a few people watching the show. Let me give that a little like there. Awesome. So you're all taking part too, okay? We are going to try and get all your questions on air in the final stages of the show. But first, we need to get rolling with this show. We got a lot on our plate this evening. So let's just fire up the conversation by introducing our current Slow Food Sacramento chair and culinary educator, Brenda Ruiz. Let me kind of get you on there. There we go. Brenda, can you hear me?
Yep, no problem.
Awesome. Okay, I gotta make sure we can hear you. Okay. Now, Brenda, thanks for joining Between Two Stoves, and thanks for coming up with the idea for this show today. I wanted to get right to it by having you kind of explain to our listeners just what Slow Food Sacramento is all about.
Thanks, first of all, for inviting us, and we're so excited that we're able to join you in this year and get in there just under. We go to what we're looking to be 2021, an exciting chapter for Slow Food Sacramento. The board has been, talking about how can we engage with chefs, producers, community, schools, and young people for the last couple of months. And 2020, when we're all working from home, perfect time to do our strategic planning. So we're really excited for 2021. And you know what? What folks told us they want the most is building more connections. So folks want to feel more connected either to the local food and where they can access the things that they love to cook at home, or businesses they can support. We have so many in Sacramento, schools and initiatives that they want to, learn about, whether it be cooking classes. And you know what? We don't have to do all those things. And we're not gonna be rolling out, all these programs, but more than anything, connecting everyone. And so this show is a perfect platform to start those connections and build on more than a decade of what we've been doing to support good, clean, and fair food for all. So thanks for having us, and I'm really excited for the lineup today as well.
So I love having this discussion. I'm really excited about it. It sounds like you're starting to, you want to kind of be kind of a voice in the community to kind of bring everyone together. And I'm very much into that community idea as well in our very much a food town here. And so I love seeing what you're doing. Okay. So you were kind of talking a moment ago about the different foods, the ingredients that people want to kind of look at. And I know that Slow Food has something that they call the Arc of Taste and Arc of Taste ingredients. Could you kind of tell us about that and maybe talk about where we might be able to find it?
Sure. So the Arc of Taste is an initiative. So Slow Food was established in Italy, but it's an initiative to preserve heritage foods and customs and seeds. And so you think of Noah's Ark. The Arc of Taste is an initiative to onboard onto the Ark all these native traditions and heritage foods and saving seeds and as well as customs. So the Arc of Taste now is kind of the holder of, products. So you might think about marketplace, but you have to find the farmers, you have to find the seeds, you have to find the wonderful folks who are making these products. And so in later this year, we're hoping for December or January, Slow Food USA, the national chapter based in Brooklyn, will be developing a portal so that you can find Arc of Taste ingredients. So many of the vendors in Sacramento have them, but you have to do this research of a catalog of over 3,000 products. So there's going to be one that's just for USA products that you can find, and you'll hear more about those products later today from our other panelists. So the Arc of Taste is just a way that we as consumers, as eaters, as shoppers can say, hey, I believe in heritage foods and heritage customs. And as a consumer, I'm going to spend my dollar. Maybe if you have a Friday night, folks coming over, you can cook something from the Arc of Taste, or go to Eric's shop and get some Arc of Taste meat, or go to Ed's restaurant and eat Arc of Taste foods that he has on the menu. Support Amy and Chanowk and the efforts that they do to be stewards of these products. And so look for the portal next year. And basically it's a concept. It's a concept of, hey, we're all in this together to support sustainable food.
And it sounds like you guys are putting the message out there. I love that idea. It's very difficult to find these products just anywhere. You don't see them at the supermarket. And so I love the idea of you guys really kind of pushing that. It sounds like you're putting together a marketplace soon where people can order these things online. And another thing that I love that you kind of mentioned is maybe having your own dinner and introducing them to friends of yours, kind of evangelize this idea of the Arc of Taste. I think that's great. So if folks want to support the efforts of Slow Food Sacramento, what are some ways that they could do that?
Well, we do have some social media presence. Connect with us there. We do a couple of promotions every now and then, but like I said before, we're doing some planning now because we really want to find out what it is that folks want to see us doing to make impact. So we've been interviewing business owners, community members, other supporters. Follow us on our social media page, on our Facebook and our website. There's a subscribe to newsletter, and we send out at least one a month, and it's the best way to connect with us and hear about what we're doing. There's also a symbol on snail of approval businesses and supporters, and it's a big decal on the front window of those folks. And so look for the snail. And support us that way, but probably social media and subscribing to the newsletter is one of the best ways to stay in touch with what we'll be doing in 2021.
Awesome.
Oh, and one thing about the Arc of Taste real fast.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that the products are hard to find, just people don't know about it. So for example, the red curry squash, it's that big kind of gourd looking dark orange and it has a little knobby top. Those are everywhere, except they're just called pumpkins, so folks don't know that it's the red curry squash and that it's on the Arc of Taste. There are many beans, many vinegars. The traditional aged balsamic vinegar is also on the Arc of Taste. So everyone has a real good aged balsamic over at Cordy Brothers behind that locked cabinet. So I think it's just education also. It's not just being able to access this stuff, but to really learn what the products themselves are.
Well, it sounds like you're setting yourself up to do just that. And I think it's a worthy effort that you are getting into with that. I think it's wonderful. Brenda, I know you're anxious to kind of get the panel on here. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk up Slow Food Sacramento. Okay, so Next up, I was going to talk with Eric V. Miller, okay? Longtime friend of the show, Eric V. Miller. I should say, in the interest of full disclosure, that we go way back together as teachers, and I was also an early supporter of Eric's Whole Beast Butcher Shop because I believed in their mission and what they're doing. And so we're going to be hearing all about that in just a minute. If anybody's out there, don't forget, you can add your questions to the discussions, and we'll have the panel weigh in on that conversation in just a bit, okay? Okay, cool. So thanks for coming, first of all, Eric. And I was going to say, Brenda mentioned it earlier, but I see that little red sticker in your window when I come into your shop. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that and what it takes to get a snail of approval?
Well, see, it's the snail approval was it's kind of thrown out. It was one of the things that I knew as to add like an air of legitimacy to VMiller when we first opened. I was like, how do we get the snail? How do we get the snail? And it was kind of explained to me like, you don't get the snail gets you, kind of thing. So like they'll just show up, and then I think it was Brenda and someone else at the time just kind of showed up one afternoon. It was like, oh, we're Slow Foods. I'm like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah, you've been nominated for this award, and fill out this application. The application was like, how do you run your business and where do you get your stuff from? And like, all the way down to like where does your waste go and how much you recycling and all that kind of stuff. So we filled out all that stuff. And then, I don't know, it took a little while. And then it was a pretty proud moment when we put that sticker on the door, because it does for, hopefully for more people through avenues like this, we'll kind of be able to recognize that, like, hey, this place is like it's slowed down. There's nothing like, there's no fast food about it, unless we're making a mockery of fast food by design. But what we just try to keep it real, like everything we do in the shop is from as close as possible, raised as naturally as possible. I go to basically all of my farms several times a year. For the first couple of years, it was to just kind of like, I guess, just reassure myself that everybody was doing things the way we were portraying that, as the beef is all grass fed and grass finished, and it's always just walking around on pasture, and it's never been in a feedlot, and there's no funny business going on. So the first couple of years was me just kind of rechecking and making sure that's what was really going on. And now it's just kind of, we've built a pretty good friendship, I guess, and relationship with all of these ranchers that, like, I have no questions that they're doing it for the right reasons and they're doing the right thing all the time. So it just adds a big air of legitimacy to my business model, but also to what I sell at the shop.
Well, I love what you're doing. That's the reason I kind of stepped in back in the day to kind of help out when you were first opening up. It was a ton of fun working in there, and I really felt good standing behind that counter and representing the product that you move out of that shop. So here's a question that I bet a lot of people ask you: can folks really taste the difference between what you have and between what the grocery store sells?
Yeah, it's night and day. Like the first, I like to say our hamburgers are kind of the gateway meat. It's fairly inexpensive, and one bite of a grass-fed beef hamburger is totally different. And I'm on babysitting duty, so I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Yeah, you love it.
That's Malou. Say hello. And so when people just kind of bite into it, you're like, whoa, that's different. And then second, third bite, you're like, this is really, holy cow, this is really, really good. And one of the comments we get all the time is like, I'm ruined. I can't eat meat from the grocery store anymore. So it's kind of, it's good for me, because where else are you going to get it?
Absolutely.
Because even, for us with, completely pasture-raised products and grass-finished beef and lamb, it tastes completely different. The pork tastes completely different as well. It tastes just like meat. So when people go like, oh, well, I bought some grass-fed beef at the grocery store, and it didn't taste like this. What's going on? And then, you know, that conversation gets to open up again about, oh, this is, you know, grass finished beef and this is completely pasture raised, and it's completely different. So, you know, the labeling and the education piece that we get to kind of portray after people have, you know, it's one thing to just say, oh, it's totally different, it's grass finished, and everybody goes, oh, that's cool, you know, like, but after you taste it, you're like, I got it, I get it now. It's a totally different thing. So
This might sound a little weird to the vegetarians out there, but just grinding the meat, you know, I would like stand over it and just smell it. It's different. Okay. It's just it smells like meat and it tastes like meat. It's really unique stuff, and you don't see it every day. So have you ever featured any of the Arc of Taste breeds in the shop at all?
yeah, we've done mule foots from we've done some of Amy's mule foots, which are always a crowd pleaser. We do there's a woman up in Amador. Actually, most recently, she raised turkeys for us for Thanksgiving. So we had pasture raised heritage breed turkeys from PT Ranch in Amador County this just a couple weeks ago, and just the remarks and the comments we got back from the turkeys was incredible. People are just like, what, you know, like almost like, what was that? Or, you know, what have I been eating? And
Yeah.
it changes, and I think everybody on the panel can probably, I know Amy and Ed in particular can just go, yeah, 100%. It's totally different.
So you mentioned PT Ranch. Can you talk about your ranchers and how they fit into the slow food community?
Yeah, all of them. I don't know how closely they work with slow food. I know they've been featured on many slow food menus over the years. Can't talk right now, dude. Sorry. Parenting. All of them have been integral in, you know, us achieving the snail and keeping with it, where everybody's dedicated to just kind of slowing it down. There's no I guess not the quick and easy way, you know, which would be to, you know, raise animals and then, you know, sell them off to feedlots and I'm not going to say get rich quick, right, Amy? But you know, you know, turn some livestock into money quickly. For instance, our beef generally from Stemple Creek a few months, but beef cattle that goes to a feedlot is usually, I think it's 13 to 17 months before it gets processed, and like all of our beef is over 2 years old.
Jump in real quick, Eric. It just got a little muffled there when you mentioned their name. That was Stemple Creek Ranch, by the way.
Stemple Creek Ranch in Tamales.
Beautiful stuff.
And so the animals are a little bit older. It you know, they just gain weight and achieve texture and flavor, quality controls, you know, through age versus through like, let's just pump them full of corn. And that's one of the biggest things with the beef in particular. You can taste it, that as that beef gets a little bit older, the flavor matures. So when you look at like a commodity raised steak, take a ribeye or whatever, it's going to be generally more the commodity stuff is going to be better marbled all throughout, and people are like, oh wow, that's super marbled. And that commodity beef relies on the fat for flavor, whereas the actual flesh of the, sorry, I didn't mean to be too gross, but the actual flesh of the beef, the grass finished beef, lamb, pork, chicken, duck, whatever it is, actually develops flavor. So you're not relying on all that fat to make it taste better.
I mean, I got to say, your customers are, you know, coming in the shop. They all say, "Hey, I grew up on a farm, and this reminds me of what I grew up with." Okay, it's just, it really does taste differently. Next, I have to admit, I stole a term from you, and I'm dropping it every chance I get. Okay, the idea of shortening your food supply chain. Can you flesh that concept out for our listeners a bit?
Yeah. So commodity, you know, again, grocery stores go from we'll just beef is just the easiest one. So, you know, they all start off on grassy pastures, and then we'll move into feedlots, and then move into processing lots, and then move into being processed, trucked, shipped, packaged, frozen, warehoused, trucked, and then to, you know, either the grocery store or whatever, butcher shop or meat counter, and then to the end consumer. All of these I would say pretty much with utmost certainty, all of these arc of taste products, and certainly the meats at the butcher shop, we have a very, very short supply chain. So it goes from the pasture to the processor to me. Nothing gets warehoused. Nothing gets frozen. You know, it's all, you know, fresh from the, you know, farm fresh, if you want to say it. But what it is, it's just a very, very short supply chain. So I'm in control of the entire operation with, you know, basically honestly, the only weak link right now is the trucking, with a shortage of truck drivers and things like that. So all through this year in particular, it's never really been an issue. But in particular, like right at the beginning of all the very first lockdown, the one of the biggest problems with the grocery store was there was, you know, trucking problems and warehousing problems and processing problems. And I got to laugh because people would say, you know, "Oh, you guys just source from, you know, small farms." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, the grocery store's out. How much ground beef can I buy?" I'm like, how much you want? I don't care. Like, I got more coming. Like, my supply chain is and was very clean, very straightforward, very short. So my carbon footprints are really short as well. And it's just an easier, slower, like more natural way to do business, I think.
I love it, especially during the COVID pandemic. As you said, I mean, the big processors, those are the first places that were getting hit. So I think it really does justify that stance. Great stuff. You're super busy there. Your final question for now, but I'm hoping you'll hang around for a Q&A a little bit in the end.
Totally.
What's an easy way that consumers can support slow food in the town of Sacramento?
Well, I think one of the easiest things, obviously, is to come and buy all your meat from my shop, and don't shop anywhere
You got
else.
it. I
But just
pitched
buy
it right
meat from
across
me.
the plate. That's what I wanted to hear.
The other thing, I think, with I'm pretty sure everybody's got that. You know, if they got a snail on the door, they probably have it up on their website. When you're looking to do, you know, takeout dinners or you know, shop, do, you know, dinner for the night, pickups, whatever, takeouts, you know, look for that emblem for the logo, and you know, like, okay, cool, this food's clean, because it's really easy to, you know, get all your proteins and all that stuff from Cisco or whatever, but it's not going to taste the same. It's not going to be as good. And you are supporting, on that note, you would be supporting, you know, that local restaurant or that local business. But in the big picture, you're also supporting really big commodity industry. Whereas with these businesses that've got that snail on the door, you're supporting a lot more local families, a lot more, you know, local people working in those restaurants, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of ties it all together, and, you know, just keeping it slow, keeping it local, and keeping it clean.
I love it. I love it. Eric, thanks for that. I'm going to ask you to kind of hang out a little bit if you can for the Q&A. I know you got your hands all over there. And
yeah, no problem.
I'm going to bring in Amy next, okay? Okay, so Amy, first, you're a brand new business in Dixon, the Pip Wine Bar and Shop. I'm sure folks may be wondering, how the heck does the slow food ethos translate to a wine shop?
Well, on the Arc of Taste, there are also wine grapes and grapes that are included. So I'm able to represent some local growers and local winemakers and have Arc of Taste wines at the shop available. So I'm going to show you what we've got. So the Norton grape is, the wine is on the Arc of Taste, and it's made by Herringer Estates over in Clarksburg. We've got Folk Machine. So Kenny makes a Valdegui, and he also makes a Charbonneau grape. Both of them are on the Arc of Taste. And then kind of if I think about when I go home and what stuff I've got to water during the summer, I have the Bronx grape, which is a table grape to eat at home. I just got them this year. I was able to special order some from UC Davis. Their grapevine services, foundation plant services. But there are just a small handful of wines that are on the Arc of Taste. And like what we've been talking about, doing a little bit, going out of your way to try something new, to support something local, to support something rare. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It's just a matter of taking the time and voting with your dollar. So, and for the Arc of Taste, there are only 5 grapes that are on the Arc of Taste for wine in the United States. So the Bronx grapes are actually just a table grape, the Charbonneau, the Herbemont, the Napa Gamay or Valdegui, and the Norton. So we've got 3 represented here. Well, 3 of the 4 wines represented here in the shop. And then the Bronx grape, although we're not making wine from it, I've got it home. Because it's important. Even if it's like 2 vines at home, 2 vines is more than none.
That's
So
awesome. So you're a wine person going back quite a ways, but how did you get involved in slow movement in the first place? The slow food movement, sorry, in the first place?
when I started to get into being interested in raising animals, I figured since I was going to raise animals, I wanted to make a difference. And I looked into rare breed animals and then doing the kind of cross-pollination between the American Livestock Conservancy on the rare breeds of US animals. And then slow food popped up in a lot of my searches, and then the Arc of Taste. So I was able to take a look at and research the different breeds of livestock that I wanted to raise, what could be raised in a healthy manner based on where I live. And then I went out of my way to try and find quality breeding stock.
I love hearing about this stuff. So you are not just the owner of the Pip Wine Bar and Shop in Dixon. You are also running a small farm, Grabish Farms. It's beautiful. Full disclosure, we went out there and did a video in the early days of COVID, my most popular video ever, home chicken processing. It was really a ton of fun. And so you are not just raising Arc of Taste grapes out there, you're also raising Arc of Taste animals. Can you kind of tell us about a couple of those breeds?
Sure. We've got breeding stock, and we've raised the black Spanish turkeys for Thanksgiving. We do it every year. This year we had a small successful hatch, so we only really had 8 that we did, but we've got a nice base of customers that buy from us again and again. And I'm not a turkey fan. Like I could leave turkey, but after cooking some of our own turkeys, I think there's a lot to be said about it. And again, it's a traditional part of a family holiday, at least in the US. So it's important that we can help provide something that's locally raised, that has rare genetics, and keep those genetics alive. You'll see, and you may have heard a little bit through what Eric was saying, a lot of the farmers and ranchers that go out of their way to seek out these rare breeds and the heritage breeds are also the same people who are going to raise them in the right way, who are going to feed them the right kind of foods. The healthy foods are going to allow them to have a healthy life, do their best to make sure they have a respectful harvest, like that transition from being a living creature to food on your plate. That's important to all of those ranchers and farmers. So we're just a small part of it. We've got turkeys. If I go to buy other livestock that we don't have breeding stock for, again, I do my research to see, is it on the arc of taste? Will it be healthy? Can it live easily in our climate? So turkeys, we recently have raised mulefoot hogs as well.
Very cool. I should mention that the Spanish toms that you are raising, that was who I used for the promotional page for this very talk, and they were very friendly. I have to say, they really wanted to get to know you in a special way, I felt. So yeah, just beautiful creatures. And the next thing is why is it important to keep these species going? Why not just go for the commodity animal that we always see?
The rare breeds are the foundation of all of the hyperbred critters that you see being raised in the commodity feedlots. They are hyperbred with some base genetics from several different breeds, and the characteristics are so exaggerated because the characteristics that are bred into the commercial livestock are extreme. And so when you get one extreme, say fast growth, you're going to get another extreme that may be a negative trait, whether it is a weak respiratory system, or whether it's a weak circulatory system. But you've got fast growth. You kind of have to hope that your animals get to harvest size before they collapse under the weight of their own bodies, because their legs haven't grown fast enough to keep up with the growth rate of the rest of their body. It's critical to have the genetics from these older breeds, because the older breeds are the ones that have throughout time, not only do they taste good, but they've self-selected to be healthy in their surroundings. So whether it's a hog that can live on its own in the woods in Missouri, whether it's a hog in Spain or Italy that the farmer can run them on acorns in the fall right before they're harvested, they have their own healthy balance based on their long-term genetics and how they've adapted to their region.
Fascinating stuff. It kind of reminds me of a seed vault. You're saving these genetics for future generations, these small farmers, right? And we don't see that in the big producers, something that could easily get lost, swept under the rug, and completely forgotten. And so I think it's just so important that you're doing this work and that you got involved in it. I just think you're so cool. Okay. I'll just say it. Okay. Can you kind of, when you visit your farm, you visit most farms, you see corn for miles and miles, and that's about it, right? You visit your little place and you've got a little piece of, you've got fruit trees and you've got your grapes growing and all of these different organisms on your farm. Can you kind of get into what monoculture is and why that's damaging to our ecosystem and perhaps also people?
Oh gosh.
Is that too
I mean, that's a ginormous topic, but monoculture is just where everything that's grown is the same genetically. So, and we're starting to see this out in Solano County, where we've got nut trees and nut trees and nut trees. And if there's one disease that comes through that affects the nut trees, they're all going to bite the dust. And if they don't bite the dust, then it's going to take a tremendous amount of chemical infusion into all of those orchards to try and fight off that one disease that's going to affect the nut trees. And it's not so much that I think the commercially grown nut trees, they're not worried about polluting the environment, putting too many pesticides or chemical fertilizers into the system, into the aquifer. It's about saving their cash crop. Like, to hell with what's going on and the byproducts and side effects of what and how they're farming. So that monoculture is really scary, because you're also, if something's hit by a disease and it's essential for us to eat and an essential part of our food system, then it's going to be toast. It's going to go away.
Yeah, it's a mass starvation and everything.
Yeah.
And I think this is a little something that people don't really realize, you know, how we're balanced on this knife edge, and one bad disease comes along. We're affected by the pandemic right now, but a bad disease going along into, like you said, some sort of crop or something could really, really hit us hard. Okay. Can you, I'll just try to keep it brief here. Can you kind of talk about that idea of a consumer as like a co-producer, like the idea of consumers as partners that support these alternative food supply chains?
If we didn't have our customers, we couldn't continue to raise what we raise. I couldn't continue to sell what I sell. Again, it's people voting with their dollars. So people who are interested but go that extra mile to seek out, you know, the right restaurant, to seek out the right butcher, to seek out, you know, and ask the right questions. You know, is this made locally? You know, what do you know about this? It's, I mean, every part of the chain, and I'm in sales, whether it's my livestock or whether it's my wine, I need someone who is interested and willing to take the time and spend the money on these special products.
Awesome. Awesome. I think you just said it so succinctly, as just voting with your dollars, being evangelists for this slow food movement, and really kind of spreading the knowledge and voting with your dollars. I love it. Two more questions and then we'll get to the next person. The first one's quick. When I visited your farm, you actually had a tortoise out there. I was wondering if you ever asked about me.
We were talking about you the other day.
Oh, cool, cool. Okay, let's seriously. So for you, Amy, can you think of any way that folks can support slow food in their homes just by maybe going online?
When I started, so before I even had the wine shop, when I was selling wine, before I made any relationships in downtown Sacramento with the restaurants, I looked on the Slow Food website to see which restaurants were snail of approval. And I wanted to go with them first. That's how I met Ed and Janelle. Janelle asked me, how did you find us? And I said, I actually looked on the snail of approval list for slow food. I wanted to do business with people that have the same philosophy. So you look on the website, it takes 30 seconds to get onto the Slow Food Sacramento website, look at the list of restaurants, of local farmers, producers, butcher shops, and spend your money there.
Awesome. You know, I got on there and I was just kind of stuck for an hour or so, just kind of poking around. Could people also go online and maybe purchase Ark of Taste wines locally?
Yeah, there's, I mean,
I'm trying to pitch it across the plate here, Amy.
Yeah, knock it out.
I do have an online website.
That's it. That's it.
That you can buy wine on, and I do deliveries in Davis, Dixon, Vacaville, and Sacramento on a regular basis.
Awesome.
So, yep. And I'm also available on email. If people have questions about the wine or the Ark of Taste wines, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with them too.
Cool, cool, awesome. Okay, so let's see. I am not seeing. I think I lost Chanowk for a minute here. So let's take it to Ed. One of Sacramento's most beloved restaurants is Magpie Cafe, where chef Ed Roehr and his wife Janelle have built a business and a community around the slow food ethos. Over the years, Magpie has been a touchstone of clean food practice because they simply offer food with integrity. Before we start with Chef Ed, I want to remind listeners to check into the comments with questions for the panelists, and we'll try and get them all answered for you at the end. But let's go ahead and bring in Ed here. And I see Chanowk is out there too. Welcome, sir. We'll get to you in just a bit. But welcome, Ed, and thanks for joining the discussion. I was hoping you could dig a little deeper into slow food and kind of talk about the history of slow food. Like, how did the concept of slow food come about?
Well, there's a lot of parts to good, clean, and fair food for all, but at its core, I mean, slow food is really about the human right to enjoy eating real food. And that was part of its inception. You know, the McDonald's company decided to open a McDonald's in near the Spanish Step in Rome, and there was a big protest. And this journalist, Carlo Petrini, decided that he would go out and that he would make real food. And rather than protest with signs, that he would just make plates of penne with a simple red sauce. And when he would hand them out to people walking by, and they say, well, what are you what are you doing this for? A lot of tourists, You know, they go to the Trevini Fountain and the Spanish Steps to see a great part of Rome. He said, well, we are supporting, we don't want fast food in our lives. We want slow food. So that's really where the name actually came from. And over the next 3 years, a confederation inside of Europe started. And in 1989, they formed a manifesto. And in the manifesto, the Slow Food Organization really talked about the human right to pleasure, to enjoying eating real food, and that we have a right not to just commodify these things, that our body is here for us to enjoy the fruits of the world, and having real food, having dining, being around people that matter. It's all about, that's the real thing. That's part of what makes being a human special.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. I love that the right to joy is, I think, the way you put it the other day. I just love that concept. So the slow food movement, you know, in its mission statement, it's really, really simple. They use 3 words: good, clean, and fair. Can you kind of talk about how what those 3 words kind of mean to you?
Well, they all are extensions of essentially of the idea that real food is a human right. And so when it comes to fair food, the idea that, like Eric was talking about, a small chain where the relationship between the resources you spend and buying go to the right places and go to people that are trying to make a community better. Clean, and those can apply in the same regard as well, that we're not expecting these things to go through a process of a year and 15 different hands and being frozen and defrosted 3 times and things like that. Good for all, I think part of that is that you have some autonomy about the power that you have when you're eating as a consumer, because what we all do as diners and cooks and producers and makers, it all actually matters. And so those values extend out to different parts of the slow food community in different ways. But in essence, it all comes back to that fundamental truth that that eating is a big part of the human experience, and it's a big part of our right. And when we do it right, it trickles into all these other pieces.
You know, people get so excited about money or fame or recognition or whatever, but they forget that we eat 3 times a day. Most people, if we're lucky, right? And it is such a huge part of our life. So how do you feel that embracing this fast food industrial complex, how has that affected our families and our entire culture?
Well, you know, it trickles all the way to the farms. It goes all the way from farms and then all the way up to our experiences in traffic on our way home from picking up the kids and listening to the radio or having to eat in the car. It moves through every aspect of our lives. And I think because the Italians are so uniquely interconnected with, their culture is so connected with the time that they spend eating together, that they were really, I think their culture was really, really just primed to tell this part of the human story to us. When we come together and we eat food seasonally, like here in Sacramento, we call ourselves the farm to fork capital, and we're getting there in some ways. You know, there's a lot that we can do to embrace having a more joyful life with these values. But you know, when you sit down and it's November or December and you're eating a pumpkin, or it's July and you're eating a tomato, like you're joining a community of people all around the Central Valley that are doing the same thing. People all together are paying homage to the beauty of eating tomatoes in the Central Valley of California. And you know that even if you're not visiting other people are doing that in other houses. The stores are selling them, the farmers are harvesting them, other restaurants are producing those things and making them. And that's the kind of fabric that food brings to a community, it brings a cultural component, because we're all building things around what's coming out of the earth at that time.
And it's something that very few of us give much thought to. And it really is a shame. I think that's a great part of what we're talking about with Slow Food Sacramento, is being that messenger and just talking about these simple things that people forgot that they miss. They don't even realize they miss it anymore. And I just think it's wonderful. We were talking the other day, and you had kind of mentioned diminishing biodiversity on our planet. I wonder if you could kind of talk about that a little bit. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, it's a little depressing, and I guess it's a side note. But before I get into that, I will say about the same BLT that we eat together. You know, we have this cultural element when we all worship a tomato at the same time in Sacramento. There's a lot of reasons to eat BLTs or have Bloody Marys, or to make things that are plant-based with real tomatoes. We're also connecting with the planet, right? Because the tomato doesn't happen all year long, and really, you know, we can put it in cans, and it's delicious in cans, and that's the right thing to do to preserve for the cold times. But it also puts us in sync with the planet as well. I mean, when we eat good, clean, and fair food, and when we take that simple idea about, you know, those values and bring them to the table, we're not only connecting with the rest of our community in this common language of enjoying food together, even if they're not in our house, we're also connecting with the season and the time. So we're also embracing that things happen at certain times, and that we should enjoy the fruits of our locality as things come. When peaches come, we love that, right? And when cherries come, and you go to the farmer's market downtown here, you get that big box of cherries home. Like, there are so many other people in Sacramento and all over that are doing those rituals around what comes out of the grounds. And those are the things that we don't want to lose. And that's the things that the Slow Food Organization really started. There's a culture, there's a human joy, there's a connection with with the actual land. And so I guess if you're asking about those things that I heard, we were talking about David Attenborough and things I heard on the local radio station, right? And they're pretty terrifying right now. Right now, on this planet, of the biomass, of the mammalian biomass on this planet, 30% of the weight are humans. 30% of all the mammals, the weight, if you just put us all on a scale, 30% are Homo sapiens. And of the rest of the weight, about 60% of that are the mammals that humans use for food. And that is just incredible. And as much as I love to eat meat, and anybody that comes to Magpie knows that we serve great meat that we believe in, that's a big number. And the part, you add the two of those up, that's 90%. And what was really striking in the show is what Attenborough said, was that if you took every platypus, every blue whale, every seal, every panda, every donkey, every other wild animal that was not involved in the human food chain, all of those mammals would add up to only 4% of the biomass that mammals are on the planet right now. So something is clearly gone wrong with the way we're eating. And it's important to think about those things. And the other thing that really struck me was I heard on a business program that we just passed a threshold where the weight of everything that humans have made that still are existing on this planet, every piece of garbage, every machine, every piece of furniture, every piece of cloth, equals the entire biomass of every living organism on the planet right now. 100%, the ratio between manufactured goods, garbage, and living items on the planet right now, 100%. It's 1-to-1. And in 1900, that ratio is only 3%. And that should be shocking to all of us. I mean, that should it's time for us to really, really think about a culture where we can enjoy the world, where maybe we don't have to make a bunch of plastic garbage. Just eat a tomato.
You can
enjoy our bodies.
I was laying awake after talking to you the other day thinking about this stuff, so I had to bring it up. I want to bring in Chanowk here in a minute, but I wanted to get you on like 2 more questions. First of all, what's one way that people could support our local restaurant community in town here? Giving you a hint here, by the way.
All right, I'm tempted to take I'm tempted to swing it over out of the park.
Do it.
Just say, buy stuff from Magpie. There's all kinds of things online. You can support us. You can support these other producers. But I'm not gonna do that. What I think people should do is just really value their capacity to in the marketplace, and just do the inverse of that. Every time you're out there spending money, think about like, why am I going to give this person, this corporation, this plastic garbage producing entity some of my hard-earned money right now? Like, why am I going to do that? And if you don't have the time to go out and order the food and pick it up at a place, or or any of that, maybe just don't spend the money. We don't have to buy so much stuff that is meaningless, and maybe we should focus our energy on other things. Don't do DoorDash from McDonald's. Don't do that.
That's what kills me is seeing the long lines of cars at some fast food corporate place, and while our local restaurants are struggling, and we're supposed to be this farm to fork community, we need to turn that around. I think it's so important. Yeah. So
Chick-fil-A is blowing it up right now. The lines outside of those places are unreal.
It's unbelievable, and it just kills me. It just kills me. Ed, thanks so much. That was great stuff. Hopefully I can get you to stick around for the Q&A in a minute here, but I got to get Chanowk on here. So let me go ahead and switch gears, and we are going to talk with Chanowk Israel from Israel Family Farms. Let's see, before we get to that, I want to remind our listeners, you two can join in the conversation if you guys have any questions out there. I haven't seen one yet, but we may get one eventually, okay? But Chanowk, I would love for you to start by introducing our listeners to your family's urban farm project. What sort of things are you bringing to the table?
Well, so for me, just really, what's really like attracted me to Slow Food was its revolutionary origins. And I think Ed talked about it a little bit when he talked about, this corporate behemoth, McDonald's coming in and trying to set up shop right across the street from, a cultural center that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And so, some guys and girls and everybody else, they got really, really upset about that. And they decided to do something about that. And so that kind of connects to my story because, you can kind of see in the background, this is a virtual background here of, kind of the place where we grow our food. But where we live, South Oak Park, Sacramento, California, is what's called a food desert, according to the USDA. That means that from where I'm standing, you can't get to a grocery store. Recently, we just had a Smart and Final get put in, so that kind of eased the pressure a little bit. But previous to that, there's no place that you can get any fresh fruits and vegetables. What you can get is you can get cigarettes, you can get beer, you can get, if you do want to get a canned vegetables, you can get those. They're probably charging for something that you could probably go to the store and get, a can of tomatoes for maybe about $1.50, $2. They're $3.50 at a corner store. And so when you think about that, and then you kind of think about the whole idea of access to these types of foods, then you kind of, encapsulate how I got started with this, because when I was young, I saw some things happen specifically with my parents around cancer, health problems. And of course, there's some truth to the idea that we could be predisposed to some things genetically. However, there's other things that we pass on to our children, and those things are called habits, specifically eating habits. And so the habits that were passed down to me were habits such as, pack of hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, half a stick of Velveeta. If I decide to eat vegetables, maybe I'll pull them out of a can, those types of things. And so as a result, then you see a proliferation of diseases, obesity, children as young as, 10 years old getting, diagnosed with things like diabetes and all those things. So for me, it was me taking a stand and wanting to put fresh grown food in my family's on my family's table, but not having the access to be able to do so from where I lived. And so, you know, I had some land, which, you know, that's another aspect too, because when you start talking about family farms and you start talking about urban farms, land is usually the biggest barrier. So we were very blessed in that aspect. But started growing food in the backyard for the purpose of, and this was about 2007, 2008, when we had the Great Recession, to make sure that we were able to get that food. I was working in the computer world, very lucrative, that type of business, working in IT, but still with the large family, you can't go to the grocery store and buy organic food every single time. So I was like, okay, why don't I go in my backyard, start growing some food? I did that, you know, after a bunch of failures, finally succeeded. But here's something else that took place while this was going on. When I first started, it would be me outside. And so, you know, through urging and, you know, all these other different types of tricks that I had to play on my children, I was able to get them out of the house and come to help, right? That went on for about 4 or 5, 6 weeks. And so one day I was just kind of rushing and I wanted to get some stuff done. And I went there on my own and I didn't get them. Within 20 minutes, they had wandered out there with me, right? And they were like, hey, how come you didn't tell us you were coming out here to do this and do that? So what started to happen is, in addition to growing food to try to reduce a food bill, there was this social, emotional aspect that took place. We're working in the garden together, spending family time. Usually we would be inside watching TV, doing something like that. So now we're working outside in this garden together that we kind of started in our backyard. And then at some point we're harvesting, then we started cooking together, and then we started to eat outside at the same time. And so during this time, there was a complete and total transformation of our family dynamic that took place just from the fact that we're growing and going through the whole miniature food system in our backyards. And so in my community, I was like, you know what? This is something that I think that everybody should be able to take part in. And so around 2011, my wife and I, Judith, I decided that I was going to quit my job in 2011 and pursue this full time. Her feet were a little bit colder than mine. You know, take those calculated risks a little bit more. But after she saw some things start to take place, about a couple years later, she did the same thing. And so 2011, we started the Yisrael Family Urban Farm with the idea of transforming the hood for good, using urban agriculture to engage, employ, and empower communities. And nobody was really too interested. You know, I had friends, they were like, what are you doing this weekend? What are you going to do? I said, oh man, we're going to work in the backyard. Why don't you come over and help? You know, I went through all that for the first 2 times. However, something special happened in 2012. I think everybody knows what that was. Somebody can tell me. Our mayor said what? We're now the farm to fork capital of the nation. That was around 2012. And so what we were doing in our backyard kind of caught the wave of the farm to fork movement. And then people started to say, oh, urban farms, maybe that is a good idea, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then at that point, people started to pay more attention to what we were doing. You know, we were able to kind of get some fanfare. There wasn't really a lot of people doing it at the time. Of course, urban farming has been going on for millennia, right? It's not a new thing. You know, there's many people in different cultures in my community now that may not have been on TV and what have you, that have been growing food for a long time. However, it brought some spotlight to it. And then that's when we were able to start really getting traction about what we're doing. Because not only are we growing food, but we're also growing people and we're also growing community. And so now what we do is we focus on growing food. But in addition, we're also a catalyst for helping people be able to kind of take that leap, you know, kind of like leaping over the broom into this new thing. We kind of think as growing your own food is like the gateway drug to a deeper nature connection that everybody has seemed to lose, has lost. And so once I can get somebody to kind of just put the seed in the ground and see something germinate, then bam, people's minds go, wow. And then there's all these other things that take place. So we do that, but then also you have to cook food. When Judith and I, when we first started this journey, you know, 2007, 2008, we were both kind of like, okay, we're going to start changing our eating habits. So she's looking at me. So then what are we going to cook? You know, we grew up on things like, okay, well, let's take some ham hocks and this and put some beans inside a slow cooker. And then that's that. Maybe throw a couple of greens in there. How are we going to start cooking this healthy food? I think our first meal for like the first 6 weeks was, I think, sauteed spinach, some couscous, garlic, and then maybe a salad. I think we did that for a long time. But over a period of time, she really came into her own in the kitchen. So then we also need to teach people how to cook food, because it's one thing to say, here's some kale, whatever, but then the person is like, well, how am I going to take this kale and get my children and cook it in a way to where my children are going to want to eat it, right? And so we do cooking classes. And then last but not least, we focus on the youth. If we can get young people dirty, in the garden, growing their own food, then the chances are they will be more likely to eat healthier, to care more about the environment, and kind of like Ed said, be more likely to say, why don't we ditch the plastic? Why don't we go to the farmer's market and just buy the vegetables directly from there and skip all the plastic that we see in other places? And so that's what we do. And in the midst of that, of course, being a part of Slow Food, I joined Slow Food as an organization in 2015, was on the board, was able to go to Italy a couple of times and see all of the great things and how people are brought together from all over the world, trading information about food and about seeds. And of course, one of the main things that we do is save a lot of seeds. You know, we save the Cherokee purples, which are on the Arc of Taste. We've got the Enchelium red garlic. We got those that we're saving all the time. We also have the fish peppers too as well, many types of okras and things like that, because saving seeds is another revolutionary act, because we have these corporate interests that are not only buying up all of the seed companies, but they're also turning out these GMO seeds, because if it was up to them, you would not be able to save your seeds, nor would you be able to go into the store and buy a seed that you could then save for yourself. It would be totally corporate controlled. You put a seed in the ground once, plant probably wouldn't even produce seeds anymore, and you then have to be dependent on them forever. So we look at seed saving as a very revolutionary act, and so that's what we're all about.
Wow. Boy, you just burned up all the questions I was going to ask you. That was awesome.
I read your mind, you know.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
Yeah.
But here, I just got a couple of little snippets to throw in there. So, hey, you're just a guy. You got some land in your backyard. What advice would you have for others that want to follow your example?
I would say go take a few classes first. I kind of jumped in full speed. Now that we have a local Sacramento farming community, go and talk to your local. There's local farmers. There's the Sacramento. What's it called? The Sacramento Farmers Guild. That's one group that you can get in contact with, and it's all the farmers in Sacramento, urban or otherwise. And one thing about farmers is that people don't tend to come and visit us that often, because a lot of times, you know, if you come on the farm with us, we're gonna look and you ain't working, we're gonna look at you like, what are you doing? So if you come and talk to your local farmer and say, hey, can I learn from you? They'll probably just download everything that they've learned in the last 25 years or however, because, you know, we like to share this information. I guess you could kind of call it pollinating, if you want to look at that, or planting seeds from that manner. So talk to your local farmers, find out, look at the people that have already done it, get advice first. I didn't have that type of community when I started. So there was a lot of mistakes that I made and a lot of money that was wasted on things that I would have done a lot differently. That would be the first thing that I say. And then the second thing I would say is, be prepared to hear people that will doubt what's going on with you. Because I know for me personally, coming from my background, when we talk to youth sometimes, especially if they're brown and Black youth, there is trauma that's connected to land. There's trauma that's connected to growing food. I mean, it's a great thing to do, but if you go back 3 generations and you either are, have family that was a migrant worker, if I go back 3 generations, people in my family were in sharecropping or in some cases actually picking cotton specifically. So there are some of those things there. So what you have to do is you have to be able to talk to people in a way to where they can understand that there's more to this than just let's grow food to make money. That's a good way to do it, but at the same time, has to be something that's cultural, something that's appropriate. And it's very important to understand those things. And I didn't understand those things until I actually got into the midst of what I'm doing now.
Wow, it sounds, you've done your research, that's for sure. Wow, it's fascinating stuff. One of the things that Slow Food talks about quite a bit is equity in our food system. Can you kind of talk about how food producers can and like food farm workers can receive like just conditions and compensation, fair compensation for what they do? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish that up for me.
I was going to say, while still offering like prices that consumers can get behind too, because we can't pay everybody $20 an hour, maybe. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on that? Equity in the food system.
This is something that I've talked to people about, is that it really has to come down to ownership, right? Because we have to start, and when I say we, I'm talking about those people who have been disproportionately affected by the oppression within the food system, is that we have to start setting our sights on ownership, right? We have to start to own these things. Whereas, we've had this idea that we should go and work and be a part of that aspect, but there are many ways that you can go and actually start to own the farms. In fact, I know a few people that are in the Central Valley who started working on farms as migrant workers, but over a period of time, they were able to get together with others, put their resources together, and actually buy the farm that they were at some point working at. So I believe that that's one way to do equity. Another way to do equity is really, I hate to simplify it, but it's really about being a human, because when you think about what's happening that's not equitable, you're talking about, okay, you have people working in a field that are harvesting food that they cannot actually afford to buy themselves, right? And so, there's a lot of politics that go on behind that. So I think that the main thing is to find the organizations that are working in behalf of those folks and then support them. Whether that is sending something to your local senator, that type of thing, whether it's giving resources, because for people to, fight against these types of structures, it takes money and resources to do that. It doesn't just happen because, everybody makes a loud voice. That's part of it, but there does have to be resources to make sure everything can, take place to fight that fight. So I think that that's another way to do it as well. I don't have the names of the organizations, but I'm sure that, we can also, follow up and get those things for people. Another way is when you see producers, such as myself and such as other people of color, support us. We can't stay in business without customers. And when we're supported, then we're able to then stay in business, and not only stay in business, but then we go and we hire people too as well. That's kind of how business works. And so the more support that we can get, then the more that we can bring other people along and help them to achieve some of the things that we've achieved as well.
So hear that, everybody out there. We can make a difference just by supporting these guys. I love it. I love it. We should probably get to questions here in a sec. I got one final question for this segment. I'm hoping you can hang out for a little Q&A. I just think there's a couple questions out there, but they're good ones. Okay. Are there any efforts to reach out to the next generation and get them to embrace the slow food philosophy? I mean, within slow food movement.
Is that a question for me?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. You kind of cut out a little bit. Yes. So there's the Slow Food Youth Network. And there's that one piece to do that. And then the other thing is that for what we do, I think it's one of those things of you kind of have to meet people where they are. So you can't just necessarily just kind of drop in and say, hey, why don't you join this organization? It takes direct face-to-face contact with people, because a lot of times when you're dealing with youth, you have to build up trust before you can then get yourself in a situation or a position where then you can start to influence and things of that nature. So we are dedicated to do that. And so we worked with Slow Food Sacramento on several projects. One of the projects is called Project Good. Project Good is a brainchild of Judith and I, which we were able to, with Slow Food support, we were able to really get youth involved. And so GOOD is an acronym for Growing Our Own Destiny. And what we did pre-COVID is we would take youth from our neighborhoods and other neighborhoods that are traditionally known as food deserts, and we would spend 100 hours with them through the summertime. So you're talking about planting seeds, you're talking about harvesting, you're talking about all the things that I talked about that I did with my own children. We would do those things with them in order to get them attached or aware of what's happening with food. And as a result, many of them, for example, you know, we got a call from one of our parents. He was like, "What you do to my child?" I'm like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? She was like,
pull weeds or something.
We went to the store. She was like, "Well, we went to the store the other day, so I put something in the cart." She took it out. It was like, "Nah, Bob, we can't buy that. We gotta buy this." I mean, you know, it was just one of those types of things. So,
It's
really,
not a good
just
feeling though. That is a great feeling right there. Just turning those kids around, or turning anybody around, and making them see what they've been eating for a while, and showing them what real food is. It's a really good feeling. Sorry.
Well, you know, sometimes we would just, you know, because I think the first day of class, I think somebody came in with some sodas and hot Takis and all those things. And I was like, you know, we're like, "Oh, you're going to talk about me." I said, "I'm not going to talk about you. Let's just turn it over. Let's read this. Let's read what's in this." They're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Yeah, what is it?" They're like, "I don't know." I said, "So why are you eating it? Why would you eat something if you don't know what it is?" And just that conversation alone, just asking that question, they were like, "Huh, that makes sense." You know, so then after 100 hours of that, how you may come out of that. You know, they're coming out there, you know, they're like, "I'm going to eat this and I'm going to eat this." We give them cooking classes, knife classes, you name it. We were there. So.
Awesome.
That's what we do to the younger generation, and Slow Food has been very supportive of that aspect. There's also some things too that Brenda could probably pop in and talk about, some things that she does over at Del Paso Heights with the youth, if she wants to do that, since we're on that thread.
Well, I think we're probably we're almost an hour and 20 minutes into it. We should probably,
okay.
Yeah. So we should probably bring in listener comments and questions for the panel. Okay, there's still time to ask questions. So please reach out in the comment section and let's find out more about slow food in one of the world's great culinary regions here. So let me kind of run through here. Had several local celebrities out there during the show. And let's see, good work, chefs. God bless you guys. Let's see. Now we have Miss Carissa Jones, if I can shout her out, longtime friend of the show and Sacramento's SCOE Teacher of the Year. She works at the Juvenile Hall program in town here. She said she tends to begin a discussion with beverages. There is a whole world beyond soda and Kool-Aid. I offer a variety of agua frescas, but with lower sugar. Question for the guests: How do you teach kids how to taste when kiddos don't even know how to eat beyond just shoveling food in? So let me kind of see if anybody wants to take that. That wasn't specifically pointed towards anyone, but anyone want to jump in there? Because I know Chanowk's got some.
Oh, go ahead, Brenda. Go ahead. I'll go after.
Go for it.
I'll jump in real fast, and I'm sure with all the classes that Judith is doing and has developed, Israel Family Farms is a good place to start. Sign up for their cooking classes. We know other partners in town, Food Literacy Center, that are doing, lots of education and have made the recipes and their curriculum available for free during COVID times. But you know what? It's I think the science says you just have to don't give up as parents. I know it takes many tries. So the child's palate, you don't develop your taste for bitter until you're a little bit older. But my son, we grew up with café con leche, and he's been drinking coffee since he was 2, so his palate was advanced to accept the bitter flavors. So we just have to keep trying, and don't create the kids' table the food that the family's having is having. Other than that, we know that parents we're super busy. Don't take the judgment out of, don't put judgment into the thing. Like Ed was saying, it should be joyful, and don't give up, because it will take many tries for your little ones to accept it. And I think as they get older, sometimes, a little bit of the peer pressure comes in to not try the foods. So don't give up. Don't bring judgment into it. Cook with your children, involve them in the process, sign them up for cooking camps, get them to do the cooking, put a knife, empower them to cook alongside you. And I know whenever I go into Magpie, Julian's in the kitchen. So, it's just giving them opportunity. And what Chanowk was saying earlier, he went out and started working in the garden, and pretty soon the kids that were, followed him out there. So it's just, don't give up, keep trying, and have them alongside you, and they'll taste, and, they got to eat, and it'll happen. Yeah. And I think kids just want more autonomy in the thing. So that's what I found at my work at Grant High School, is that the students really wanted more autonomy. And when I was getting them, they would, ask me, just simple things like, Chef Brenda, can I go to the bathroom? Yeah, go to the bathroom, dude. They're like, oh, because I'm not allowed. And so, you put them in cooking groups, and they're, following the recipe, doing it, creating their own recipes. And it's really, giving them a small amount of tools and rules for being in the kitchen, like, use pot holders and all that stuff. And give them autonomy and give them a chance.
Awesome. Yeah, let's see, there was another comment or two. There was a few comments about like CSA boxes, the variety packs from produce companies. Anybody have any comments about that?
Well, I'll say something about that. I'll say that those are great, and I know that there's a few ways that you can get those. Most of those are some services that you may see, but there are many local farms in Sacramento that are doing those types of same boxes, and I think that it's called community-supported agriculture because it should be coming from in your community somewhere. And so there's various people, like there's Route 64, there's Three Sisters Gardens, there's We Grow Urban Farm. Of course, there's us, ourselves. I think there's another place. What's the name of that place? I can't remember the name right now, but they're out of Rio Linda. And so all of the people that I mentioned, we're all local here, Sacramento, West Sacramento, as far as it goes. And so we all have the CSA boxes. CSA is a model that really helps farmers because it allows us to get the resources ahead of time. And as a result, we're able to kind of spend more time growing food than having to struggle about, okay, if we're going to go to a market this week, that week. You kind of pay for something up front, and then when you pay up front, then that takes all the stress out of our lives, and then we can just focus on making sure you get a good food box every single week that you get it. So that's a great way to support the local movement.
I love it. Support the local. Don't buy the Blue Apron, the big corporate guy, right? Stick with the local stuff, right? Let's see. We've got a couple of educators out here, but Carissa Jones had another question, and this is for everyone. I've started a recorded speaker series. Who wants to share what they are doing with kiddos at juvenile hall? I am happy.
Oh, I'm down.
Happy to Zoom visit and all of that stuff. So anybody want to get involved with that sort of thing?
Write me down.
Right there, Carissa, if you're out there, write that one down, okay? Chanowk Yisrael, you can, I'm sure you can find him pretty easily on the internet. He has a huge following over there at the family farm, I gotta say. Anybody else interested in that sort of thing?
Definitely, Carissa. You can count on Slow Food to support the work that you're doing. It's really, really central to like try to, work within the carceral state to, make that not what it historically has been for so many people, and especially our young people. So we're down to show up and to be present, and we're looking forward to the partnership for sure.
Awesome. I saw Amy, you gave a little nod. Can't talk too much about wine. We don't want them to make pruno. I got to avoid that when I teach ladies prison as well. So just throwing that out there. Let's see. She's talking about downloaded everything, showing the beauty of food. I'm not seeing a question there. I'm just kind of running through them. And I think we've gotten to the end. Gosh, we're just at the about an hour and a half into this, everybody. So thank you so much for coming. I think that was a pretty darn successful very first panel for the show here. Well, let's all wave to everybody. Thanks for coming in, and we will close this baby out. And again, thanks so much. We have been streaming tonight at the Industry Cooking Community, and we've been talking about Slow Food Sacramento. We stream live every Monday at the Industry Cooking Community group on Facebook. We got a great bunch of food-minded folk over there, so if that's your kind of people, it's definitely something you should check out. We also have lots and lots of these vids archived over at the Industry Cooking channel on YouTube, where right now you can enjoy a complimentary subscription, for free. So go on over there and check that out too. I got a ton of other interviews with chefs, farmers, and other food forward thinking individuals. And you have been enjoying a little thing I like to call Sactown Slow Food Soiree. I want to thank our guests, Brenda Ruiz from Slow Food Sacramento, Chanowk Israel from the Israeli Family Farm, Ed Roehr from the beloved Magpie Cafe, Eric Veldman-Miller from VMillerMeats, and the mighty Amy Grabish from the Pip Wine Bar and Shop in beautiful, beautiful downtown Dixon, California. I want to thank most of all you, the listeners, and I always like to remind you all to slow down and be true to the food, and don't you ever forget that the party is always in the kitchen. That's the show, folks. Thanks a lot, guys. And
Dave, thank you.
Until next time.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it, everybody.
Awesome. Take care, guys. High five. High 10.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll see ya.